Welcome, welcome, welcome. And Ayesha, take it away.
Hi, well, first of all, hello everyone. Welcome to Just Talking. This is a show where Gwenda Lambert and we are two professional coaches. We talk about things that people experience every day and the challenges that they have. And so this week or this month, we have been talking about the process of letting go. I've talked a little bit about communication, and Gwen, do you want to introduce yourself and talk about what you've been talking about this month?
Well, and what I was talking about the first week was basically about the emotional aspect of letting go, that sometimes it's, we hear a lot about limiting beliefs, but a lot of times there's unresolved grief or emotional situations that need to be addressed before we can effectively let something go, right? Because we can't let anything go if we don't acknowledge that it hurts us or anything that it may have gifted us as well, right? Because we don't always learn. We know that we don't always learn when it comes to easy stuff. It's usually the challenging stuff. So, and as you may or may not know, I'm an advanced grief recovery specialist with the Grief Recovery Institute. And we've just started our group sessions. I had our first one today on Sunday. It's going to run for 8 weeks. And we have ones on Monday nights as well. So you still have a chance to get in. And it's a powerful tool to help you let go, embrace your grief, embrace those emotions that need to be expressed, because they won't go anywhere if we just pretend they're not there. And so this is what Ayesha's been dealing with over the last little while, because she's the head and I'm the heart. That's sort of like that. We both have the other, but that's what our businesses are about, right? So Ayesha's gone on a journey and she's made a big share this week. How did that feel, Ayesha?
It was scary to go public like that and to kind of talk about the diagnosis of cervical dystonia and what that's going to look like going forward. That for those of you who didn't see it, cervical dystonia is a movement disorder. It's a neurological condition. There's no cure for it, just symptom management. And it's something that I've really been dealing with more intensely over the last 6 months. And that's been the big shift. And so rather than trying to hide it and, like not wear a neck brace or not talk about it, when I'm on a Zoom call or when we're doing Just Talking, I decided that I wasn't going to hide it anymore, that I was going to come out and really just let people know that this is what it is, so that I could have some comfort and also some visibility. I wanted to be seen as my whole self, and my whole self right now is kind of in a little bit of a painful place. So it was scary, but I felt like it was something that I really needed to do. So I'm grateful that I did it. And I'm just so grateful for all the love and support that I've gotten, and especially from you, my lovely Gwenda, that you've been there for me and you've been such a support for me through this process as well. So thank you.
And that's, this is the interesting thing, right? Is that we all think like, if we do this, we're holding on. When we hold on and it's like, oh no, I'm good. I'm fine. Everything's great. Does this look relaxing? No, but it's like,
That's right.
And so it's sort of like it's waiting to exhale. It's all those movies, all those sayings. Everything about that is that once you give yourself permission to be human, and the whole Dr. Seuss, if they matter, they won't mind. If they mind, they don't matter. And it's not to be dismissive of others, but I think the one thing right now is we need to be able to embrace our fears. We need to be able to say, okay, what about this? Why? Like, what were some of the questions you were asking yourself before you did this? Because I know this was a big step for you. What were some of the questions that led you to this positive, like, yeah, no, I'm not going to hide from the world anymore. I'm going to actually show up 100% me. What were some of those questions?
I think that some of the questions were just around the amount of discomfort that I had about hiding it, and about trying to, and why I was hiding it, and what kind of expectations that I was trying to meet that I didn't have to me, you know what I mean, from myself and also from other people. And like you said, part of it is, a big part of it is, and as you know, through the Just Talking process from last year, you and I have been on kind of a grief recovery journey, for me anyway, from the beginning of that, when we started that last spring, when we started talking about grief. And I was one of the fortunate ones that was able to get in with Gwenda right at the ground level and do the grief recovery method with her. And she is amazing at holding space and walking you through the methodology and helping you to really deal with the emotions that we're holding on to and the unacknowledged stuff, because I didn't realize how much unacknowledged grief I had. And to be honest with you, I honestly think that if I hadn't have gone through that process with you, I would not have been able to get through any of the stuff that happened last year, which already in itself was a lot. But this thing, I think, would have been much harder to navigate, because the initial part, like I was having these symptoms. So some of my symptoms are that the dystonia, the way that it typically presents is you have spasms and your neck just turns and your head turns and it kind of locks in place for a while. It can be very painful, and it can happen kind of slowly, or it can happen very suddenly when you're just not expecting it. I had been noticing the drift for almost 2 years. And I just thought, okay, I spend a lot of time on the computer. I have 2 screens. Maybe I'm just holding my head this way too much, all those kinds of things, right? And then when it got very intense, then I was just like, what's going on? Why is this happening? Like, oh my goodness. And then the kind of the self-blame kicked in, and the denial kicked in, and the if I had taken better care of myself, if I had just paid attention to this sooner, and then, it can't be that bad. I'm going to be able to work through this, and it's just temporary and all that stuff. And all these different emotions were coming up, so the decision to go public is also something that takes into account all those different emotions, like the blame aspect, like how much I was blaming myself, how much I was feeling like I wasn't worthy because I wasn't meeting people's expectations, that I had somehow failed myself and was failing other people. And it was trying to help myself out of that mindset and think about that health things, they happen, right? They happen, and they happen to healthy people. They happen to people who do, have all kinds of different activities and different lifestyles. And so it's just something that that's all, and I think dealing with the emotional aspect of grief was something that I had to start doing as we were walking through that process. So dealing with the uncertainty, the feeling of unworthiness, the self-blame, the fear of what's going to happen when I speak up. Are people going to look at me differently? Are they going to think I'm less than? Am I going to lose clients? All that stuff is running through my head. So ultimately it was like, I have to just be myself. I have to be honest, and I have to be myself. And that was really the driving factor of why I chose to speak out. And I also wanted to be comfortable. I'm already in discomfort. I don't want to be in discomfort 24/7 with everyone that I'm talking to, and the work that I'm doing. So.
Isn't that interesting? And I think one of the things that you talked about is the blame part. And because the whole thing is that people, we don't necessarily look at how we talk to ourselves. A lot of times people, it's like the toxic positivity. So they sit with and I don't even like the terms, we've talked about it here, negative and positive. It's just like, oh, well, something weird's happening. And you get the 2 camps. Well, let's rip off the Band-Aid, because then I can make a decision and make a choice and move forward. And you get the other people, it's like, I don't want you to tell me anything. I don't want to know. I don't want to have to make that decision. And so even in how did that, because it sounds like for a while you were in that camp, that you were like, you know what? Oh, I'll just make up an excuse. So I guess, no, more importantly, how did you know that you were deferring that decision? How did you know, or when did you become aware when it was like, is it just because of the pain, or was it, was there something in your niggling at you saying, yeah, this is my intuition, something's going on here, this isn't right?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Thank you. I think that the thing was that I was uncomfortable. I mean, I'm trying to be there. I'm trying to be present. And at the same time, because I'm not wearing my neck brace, because I'm not taking care of my neck, I'm not there 100%. I'm thinking about, how do I keep my neck straight? Oh, I need to put my hand up. Oh, I need to put my hand on my neck. And if you go back and you watch the Just Talking videos, you're going to see me doing this, right? And and it was painful. So it took me out of the moments where I could really be and contribute my whole full self, and really, and I was partly distracted, right? So I was uncomfortable. I felt dishonest as well, because I wasn't talking about it. And I think the thing about hiding is that hiding makes you feel shame.
Mm.
Makes you feel ashamed. It makes you feel like you have something to be ashamed of. I don't have anything to be ashamed of. This happened to me. Okay, I need to figure out a way to keep going. So what do I do with that shame? And I think it was the fact that I began not just to feel uncomfortable, but I felt ashamed of what happened, like again, the self-blaming aspect, and that I wasn't being honest. Like all this negativity started to come in, and anyone who's gone through a health crisis knows that your mindset is one of your biggest recovery tools. If you don't have the mindset that, okay, I don't have any control of what's going to happen in the present, but or in the future, but what I can do is I can take as much care of myself as I can in this moment, right? And I realized that I wasn't taking care of myself.
Right.
So, yeah. Yep.
So that's, and I think so I know you did mention the grief work before. So I guess that would be the difference. I know you mentioned potentially before all that, you probably, before doing all that grief work, because this is the whole thing, is this is something that's physical. So you can pretend it's not there. So you know, but the whole thing about the grief is just being able to like literally let go of emotional stuff that you've had in your heart. And we think that we compartmentalize, and we think that we are able to, oh, when I'm at business, I'm over here, and we're not. We're like, we have one body. So how much of this, so I guess again, because you're the thinker, like not the thinker, but you talk about effective communication. How is it that you started reframing this situation in your mind to embrace that? Because I'm sure there had to be a couple of like, oh my God moments where it's like, you know, where you do have to go there and go, you know, I'm going to end up being, you know, Picasso's face, you know, kind of nose sideways, you know. I know that that's what I do. I mean, I go full on, okay, what's the worst thing that can happen? And then I rein it in. So did you have any of that where you actually allowed yourself to go, oh yeah, this is fear. Okay, fear, you've had your time. Now let's get down to work.
I think that, you know, I think it's natural that as humans, and especially in this time where there's so much fear and there's so much vigilance and there's so many concerns that people have about Omicron, about COVID, about all those things anyway, that it's natural that you're going to go right to the very, you know, right to the very edge of what the worst could be. And when I spoke with the doctor, he said, well, you know, you should see a neurologist. I mean, it looks like dystonia. You don't have any other symptoms, but we need to rule out things like, you know, like Parkinson's or MS or something like that. And as soon as he said that, you know, I could just feel like, oh my God, like I just felt that, you know, incredible amount of fear and anxiety. And I was like, okay, the thing is that the exploration for me now is very, like, what's happened is coming to terms with something like this means that your life changes. because, you know, with the symptoms that I have, I can't be working on the computer all the time. I can't be on Zoom calls all the time. I can't, um, you know, I have to get up, I have to do exercises, I have to do meditations, I have to do things that soothe my nervous system because it's neurological. So you really have to work on soothing your nervous system. So what happens then is that the productivity level goes down, right? So what I'm used to producing in a day, what kind of like projects and social media and content and stuff like that, that starts to reduce. So then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, like then you've gone from the blaming and the shaming to the disappointment and the frustration and the, you know, the upset about how, you know, well, how is this going to impact my business? How am I going to be able to make a living? What am I going to be able to do now that this is happening? And so so then it forces you to slow down, because if you're in that negative place and you're talking to yourself in that negative way. And so coming back to both of our sessions from earlier this month about emotions, about talking to yourself, is that first of all, you need to process that fear, right? And so when he said that, I said, okay, I don't have any control over what's happening. There is a lot of anxiety around that. Right now, I'm not seeing any other symptoms, and I still need to have that consultation with a neurologist. So right now, the only thing that I can do is to just be present in this moment and to do what I can and to take care of myself and to process that fear and to process that uncertainty and that anxiety and to find a way to do that that makes sense for me. And it's been kind of this combination of, like I said, meditation and exercising and you know, just affirmations, things like that. And even though occasionally I might think about that fear, I don't let myself stay there too long. I say, you know what, the people, it's been proven again and again and again that people with a positive and strong mindset who stay their path, do the work, don't get kind of taken all over the place, they're the ones who have the best chance of recovery. And so that's where I've been trying to put my energy, and to kind of acknowledge those other things like disappointment and fear and frustration and anxiety and so on, to acknowledge them and then to be able to just process them as best I can. And it's like any practice, it's ebb and flow. Some days are better than other days. So 2 days now I haven't slept because of my symptoms. So there's more anxiety, more fear because my body is responding to the fact that I haven't slept. So it's noticing those things and thinking, and also making those logical connections that, oh, the reason why I'm having more symptoms is because I haven't slept in 2 nights, right?
Mm.
So it's not because, oh, I'm barreling into some other more serious condition.
Right.
It's because this is a natural consequence of what I'm going through. So it's trying to find that balance.
So like not dramatizing, not catastrophizing. And I would also like to, because you brought up an interesting thing, and, you know, because you've also brought up the COVID part, but now you've been dealing with doctors because of other situations that were going on in your life. And I think that one of the interesting things when you're dealing with the medical community, they rule things out. They're not going to give you a definitive diagnosis unless they know it's not other things. And
Yep.
so I think that sometimes, because this has to do with how we process, this has to do with, like, do we understand that when your doctor says, oh, it could be MS, it could be Parkinson's, they're not doing this because they're trying to scare you. Although some people, it'd be like, you mentioned the P word and the MS word all in the same sentence. So it's like, did that knowledge of going through something that could have been a lot worse, but being able to keep your feet on the ground and be mindful and be present, did that help you when it came to having that doctor's conversation? That doctors are basically scientists for the most part, right? They're trying to problem solve, right? Did that
Yeah.
help you at all?
Well, I think you raise a really good point, because my work background is also in a medical clinic as well. So I've seen a lot of a lot of how doctors work, which is really diagnostic, right? They're diagnosing what's going on and they're giving you all the different options so you can make a choice or you can make a decision about how you want to go forward, right? So so they're not saying, as you said, they're not saying this to scare you, but they're telling you that they need to rule out a whole bunch of other stuff as well. And so that's fine. And that definitely did help me to contextualize what they're saying. And that's a different thing than I think what a lot of other people have been experiencing, which is when because I've been in such close proximity to doctors and I know the diagnostic process and so on, I know this element of, and also what I've been through in the last year with other situations, I know that nobody has the 100% answer. All they can do is look at you where you are right now, give you some information about what that looks like, and then you have to go from there. I mean, I know lots of other people, I've heard story after story from people that, oh, my so-and-so got diagnosed with XYZ, but they've, and they had like 3 months to live, but it's been 12 years and they're still here, right? So there's all those kinds of things that you have to kind of find the balance of, and it's not easy because there's so much conflicting information and there's so many different challenges that people go through. So I think that, coming back to, you have to be present as much as possible in this moment and look at where you are, look at what's going on, make those connections. Like you said, the catastrophizing, like if I'm having more symptoms, instead of jumping to that place of, oh my gosh, it's getting worse, it's like, okay, what's happening right now that's making these symptoms worse? What can I do to alleviate, right? And so on top of like all of the medical stuff is also just enhancing my own learning of what is cervical dystonia, how does it present, what are the things that happen when you are not taking care of yourself or when you're having more symptoms, why that's going on. And then I also looked into people like on YouTube, things like that, people who have been dealing with this. What are some ways that they've alleviated their conditions? What are some ways that I've only seen one video where a woman said that she's gone into remission, and she was talking about, very particular things that she did that I thought, okay, there are 2 things in there that I can do every day. Let me do that and let me see how that works for me, right? Because again, the other piece of it is when you hear the word neurological, there is that element that we're learning more neuroscientifically of how the brain works, how we can rewire the brain, how we can, adjust things that are happening and kind of help to shift them back into normalcy. What are the things we can do? So it's trying to look at everything from a very balanced perspective and a one thing at a time perspective, like one thing at a time. And I think that when it comes to the practice of letting go, that's the thing. Because if we have this habit of catastrophizing and getting very reactionary and responding to every little thing that happens and really going over the edge, then what happens is that we lose that ability to really take care of ourselves in the present moment. And that doesn't help in the long term either, right?
No.
That's a long answer to your question. Sorry about that.
No, but that's exactly it, is that this is a conversation. We're just talking, but this is, there's quite a few things here, because let's talk about the general world. You've got the people that it's like, we create our thoughts create us, and all that stuff is real. Like, that is real. Does that mean that we can cure ourselves? Well, that stuff can get really heady. By that I mean, like, we're in our head. Whereas the reality is that if you're not actually calming your nervous system, if you're not actually focusing on, okay, what are the thoughts in my head? What's like, again, we've talked about the awareness of how we talk to ourselves. We talk about the emotional aspect, because there could be parts of this that can be a ramification of what's been going on in your life for the last couple of years. Let's face it, all of us have been under undue stress, right? On a whole bunch of stress, and all that can end up being grief. And you just did a whole big process
Yeah,
into that, and you
yeah,
were like, oh my God, didn't even know it was there.
yeah, that's right.
So while that's the beginning, there's truth to all of those different aspects, right? But the most important thing is that yes, you can't have a negative and a positive in the same place, but those other feelings of, is that your saboteur in your mind, like from a coaching perspective?
Yeah, yeah,
Is that my saboteur? And so this is actually giving you an opportunity to get to know those different aspects of how you talk to yourself, why letting go matters, why if something comes up and it's like, oh, that's an interesting thought, I haven't thought of that yet. That kind of stuff. It's really about being aware of how we're using the computer that is our mind. Does that make sense to you?
oh, 100%, 100%, it makes sense. And of course, in the middle of this, I'm having a big hot flash, so
Yeah, good. But
yeah,
and then
'cause
you
why not, right?
because why not? Because it's only menopause, right? Women have been going through it for 1,000 years, and it's too bad that we don't talk about that stuff more.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Again,
well, maybe that's something we need to talk about as well. But yeah, I think 100%. And I think I would say one of the big ahas for me through this is that there's no one ultimate truth,
yeah,
and that different truths can coexist at the same time.
yeah,
Right. And I think that that's something that's really interesting, because we have this idea, societally from our families, we have this idea that there is some kind of overarching truth. There is the truth, right? And it's not. There isn't the truth. There are just different truths that coexist at the same time, and that that actually you kind of ebb and flow between those truths all the time, right? So you might think, okay, well, truth is very important to me, so I can't abide anyone lying. But at the same time, you might not be completely honest with someone if you're not ready to tell them the truth, or you're running late and you say, oh, I had some car trouble, even though it's just because you ended up watching some episode of something and you left the
or
house
Candy
late.
Crush couldn't let you go,
Yeah,
right?
exactly, whatever, right? So it's not. So I think it's the fact that there aren't a lot of there's no absolutes, I guess, is where I am now, is that there's no absolutes. It could go one way and it could go another way. I don't really have any idea, or it could just stay like this for the rest of my days. I don't really have any idea. The only thing that I know for sure is that I'm going to keep working through it the best way that I can, right? And so letting go of the idea of absolutes, letting go of the idea of the truth, letting go of all the pressure that I was putting on myself. And again, these are things that ebb and flow. They ebb and flow. So some days it's easier to let go of those things. And some days it hits you like a ton of bricks and you're right back. You feel like you're right back to square one, and you have to remind yourself, okay, you know what? This is not the first day. I'm on day 60.
Yeah.
So, okay, I've learned this much. Let me go back to what I know. Let me go back to what I've learned, right? And I do believe, like, I'm one of those people. I believe in science. I believe in medicine. So, whatever I do is always going to be in consult with my medical provider. The nice thing about my medical provider is that he also believes in other methods of healing.
Yeah.
They have a naturopath in their clinic.
Yeah.
They have other methods of modalities of healthcare in their clinic, because they understand that all those things can work together, right? So it's I think finding a good healthcare provider. What I've observed in my professional life is also that people give over the power of their own health to their healthcare providers. And
Oh,
sometimes they don't believe their healthcare provider. They don't trust their healthcare provider, because the system is so stretched thin. The healthcare provider is not 100% present with the client, and they're kind of telling them what they need to know, but they're not giving them the real kind of care and attention that they need to be able to work through any kind of diagnosis in a way that's self-supporting and self-accepting and self-loving, and gives them trust and gives them hope. So you see all of these things, again, all these different truths that exist at the same time. And it's like, okay, where do I go from here? What are the things that I can do to really take care of myself, right? So So yeah, so I think that those are definitely some of the things that have been standing out for me in the last while.
Well, and I think you brought up, I mean, again, as always, I love our conversations because we end up going from soup, nuts, back
Yes.
to the water that makes the soup and that waters the nuts. Is that when you're dealing with, you have a healing team. You have, so, and I think the challenge now, especially with, God knows, with all the misinterpretation of what the medical community is supposed to do.
Mm.
Like everybody wants to be successful and make money. Absolutely. Does that mean that every single doctor knows everything in the world? No. In
Nope.
fact, your GP, it's called a general practitioner because they're not a specialist.
That's right.
So until you're dealing with somebody that actually specializes, and then even I love, I remember my mom who was a nurse, and there was one point where somebody was having a problem with their heart. And my mom looked at the doctor straight and said, okay, she's not a heart on a stick at the end of the driveway. That
Yeah.
heart is in a body. So we need to know the whole thing. And so this is the thing, is that, when we are creating the team that's going to help us, we have to be able to, they need to be able to advocate for us.
Yeah.
And they do have, what, 15 minutes, and you see them like maybe once a year, maybe you go for your physical, maybe you don't. So this is all about first of all, it starts with the relationship with yourself, which is the biggest step that you've taken here, is like, hey, something's not right. I'm not going to ignore it, because I can't do anything, even changing my own thoughts. I can't do anything unless I acknowledge that it's there, right?
Yeah.
And that's the interesting thing, even about, just to bring it back to grief, because who knows here, like little Ho'oponopono, who knows if there's, Reiki or something where it's like, okay, well, where is this coming from somewhere in the past? Because I've just actually opened up a can of worms over here. So this is potentially a manifestation. Yeah. Now, does that mean it is? No, might not be, might be, who knows? But the thing that's important for you and for anybody that's watching this is that you're taking your responsibility for your own health. And so I think the interesting thing is, especially with all the misinformation and the misinterpretation of stuff over the last couple of years, is that it's really important to understand that a doctor is a scientist. A doctor, for the most part, do go based on data. That data will be interpreted in different ways. And again, you're not a doctor, so you're not gonna, and doctors make the worst patients, by the way, nurses, even more so, because they take care of everybody else. So at this point, you've also been in that, I've been the one that's taking care of everybody else. So this is the first time really in the time that I've known you where it's like, no, I need help with and I've got to be putting my own mask on first. So thank you for doing this, because this is walking the walk, right? This is, you know what, we all have stuff. It doesn't mean we have to walk around with our stories on our sleeves and go, okay, because that's victimizing ourselves even more so. But I think it's great right now that it's like, you're like, okay, so what is it I can do now? I'm going to learn as much as I can. I'm not going to shy away from this. I'm going to count on the people that are on my healing team, but I also know an osteopath might give me more relief than my doctor does in this case, right? Somatic work, doing work with my body. Maybe journaling will help, meditation, because it'll allow me to calm my mind. You know, there's co-regulation that comes with any kind of, any kind of being able to normalize your nervous system. I just went off on a tangent, but how does those thoughts, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that that's the thing, like when you're present in the moment and when you stop giving over your power to other people, like for example, your primary caregiver or other people that are around you that might also be reacting to what's happening to you because they're afraid of what's going to happen to them, right? So you've got people around you that have been depending on you, people around you that you've been doing stuff for, and now you have to kind of scale back and say, okay, I have to take care of myself. So you have all these different lenses. And when you give over that power, then you aren't able to, you're the one in this body. You're the one having these experiences. And you have to keep your agency and you have to keep your voice, right? And that's one of the things that I talk about a lot in the Empowered Expression program is to empower your voice and embrace your choices, because you are the only person who knows what you're actually going through. And the best care can come from you being open and willing to look at everything that's happening in a balanced way, in a realistic way, and see what your options are. There's no need for you to cut off any of the options that are available to you, whether they're medical, whether they're somatic, whether they're any, it's what am I eating? Like people say, well, a lot of the neurological stuff comes from inflammation in the body. Like there's all kinds of things to explore and to look at and say, okay, how do I best take care of myself? And I think, you brought up a really good point about relationships in this period as well, because you really start to understand also what you need to let go of in terms of perfectionism, in terms of putting everybody else first, in terms of putting yourself, like creating discomfort or pain for yourself to do things for other people, right? And when you're going through something like that, all of that kind of becomes very clear. You get a very clear context of, here's what I can do and here's what I can't do, right? You can also figure out how much of something you want to do or when you can do it, instead of dropping everything to take care of other people. So you start to learn a little bit more about that self-care aspect of making sure that you are focusing your energy where you need to focus your energy, because you are not in a situation where you can be, stretched so thin and do so much, right? And then it's at the expense of your own health and well-being, and you just don't, you realize that you can't do that. So you let go of what were your old ways of being, which were your unhealthy ways of being, which were your codependent ways of being, right? You kind of start unlearning that stuff because you need to rebuild in a way that's safer, that's healthier, that's more nourishing for you, that helps you to recover, that helps you to take care of yourself and have a good quality of life, regardless of what you're experiencing, right? Because that, at the end of the day, is where you need to be. None of us know. I mean, even with this, who the hell knows? No. I don't know where I'm going to end up or what's going to happen. I don't have any idea. I could be the healthiest person in the world, and tomorrow, that might be the last day. I don't have any idea. So the only thing that any of us can do is to be our own self-advocates, to use our voices, use our agency, take good care of ourselves, and create the kind of relationships that are collaborative and that nourish both ways. Because that's the other thing. Let go of the people that suck the energy and the life out of you. Let go of the people that ignore you. I mean, I've had people ignore what I'm going through, like just absolutely ignore it and have expectations that I need to do stuff anyway, right? Yeah. And it's like, no.
And the other thing that's really neat here is that I always find that when you choose a path and you are actually taking those steps, then all of a sudden it's almost like the universe gives you okay, I just want to make sure that you are really walking the walk. And so in that, it's the moment from the stimulus to who am I choosing to be at this point? Yeah. Whereas before it could have been this far apart, and now it's like, yeah, it takes this much. And then after, you can sort of go, whoa, look at that. I matter to me, and that it is almost showing you how your boundaries are working for you and how it's enabling you to be more you, right? And then it's easier, once we decide who we're going to be, we have to have that test, the pendulum swings both ways, that we have to have that, I'm going to say this, and maybe a little over exuberant, to no, yeah, okay. Well, this isn't really helping me. This, so, and how long does it take for you to get to that point, to have that pendulum go all the way this way and then go, okay, that might have been a tad over expressive, to, okay, that's under expressive. Okay, we're in the middle now, right? And how soon does that take for you to be able to say, no, I matter, and I matter. And now it is one of those neural pathways that, yes, I matter. So it's almost like proving to yourself, yeah, you can, the old dog, new tricks, all that kind of stuff. And it's almost like okay, yeah. So now what am I going to do? What am I going to do with this, using today's terminology, manifestation power?
Yeah.
What am I going to do with my, you know, like, I am walking the walk, and how much following your own path and following your own instincts, actually, you feel it in your body differently when you make those choices. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. Layla agrees here. I don't know if you heard her.
Yeah.
There. Yes. Yeah. She, so that is 100% true. I think that, you know, the neural pathway isn't just to health, to talk about health and physical health and well-being. It's also about learning new ways of doing things. So changing that neural pathway by making a different choice and then continuing to make that different choice, right? Because if you've been doing something the same way over and over and over and over again, that's how your brain functions. You sometimes don't even think about it. You automatically do it because that's the way that you've learned to do it, or that you've continued to do it for years. So when you're retraining your brain, then it takes that time to, like you said, sometimes get a little messy. Maybe you're a little loud, or get a little, inhibited. Maybe you didn't say enough, right? And then to find whatever that balance is for you, and to remember that, what, actually, you don't need to show up exactly the same way every single time. You have the option to change how you're showing up, what your voice is, what your path is. Like, you get to make those choices. Like, sometimes you may not want to do something, you're going to say no, but that doesn't mean you're going to say no every time. Next time you might say, oh, okay, I can show up for an hour. Or you can say, okay, yeah, you know what, I'm in for the long haul, I'll stick around for the whole event. Like, you have options at every point. And when you start learning that your life is actually just a series of options, that there's no right or wrong, there's only what is right for you at any given moment, what makes sense for you, right? And then you take away that judgment, because, as we know, the judge is like the loudest
Mhm.
of all of our saboteurs, right? So the judge is always there saying, you made the wrong decision, you shouldn't have done this, you shouldn't, and then you start to kind of just see, okay, you know what, okay, shut up, I don't need you. And then it's like, okay, what do I do next here? What is the choice that I can make? And then, you know what, if I'm making this choice this time, maybe next time I can make a different choice. And then it just becomes, you're making a series of choices, and every choice you make has a better impact on you, right? So I think that that's important for us to know, that when we do that, then neurologically, then we change, and we change in terms of our habits, we change in terms of our mindset, we change in terms of our interactions, and things change. We also recognize when other people can't change, don't want to change, don't want to meet us where we are. And then what you do is you start letting go of those engagements, and you decide again how much of that you want to engage with, without taking it on, without taking ownership of it, and feeling like you're the one who has to fix it, or you're the one who has to step up. You don't.
Exactly.
All you need to do is know what you want, show up, express it as kindly, as helpfully as possible, as honestly as possible, as directly as possible. You're not responsible for the way other people react, but being responsible it's key. And I think through this last year, that's one of the things that I've really started to understand is, where is my responsibility in things? What is my responsibility in things? And if I choose in a moment not to take responsibility for something, then I don't take responsibility for it in that moment, but it will come back and bite me in the butt. So at some point I am going to have to deal with it, right? So it's just acknowledging, it's being conscious, it's being aware in every moment of the decisions you're making. Sometimes you don't always make the choice that is the optimal choice that you can think of in hindsight, and think, oh, I should have done this. you may not make the optimal choice, but you always have an option to do something different the next time. Right?
Absolutely. And look at us. We've gone to 45 minutes without even blinking. But so Ayesha, I'd like to say thank you for your courage and your bravery for sharing this story and for really walking the walk, because I think that that's the thing, especially as a coach and especially in any kind of healing capacity or mindset capacity, is that everybody still puts on their best face, their, you know, everything's perfect. And it's like, well, this is you, so it is perfect. And until we actually get to that place where, you know what, yeah, I can make my hair look nice and do the right clothes, but you know, it's more important that I show up.
Yeah,
right? More
that's right.
important that I show up. So
Yeah,
I want to
that's
say thank you so much. I
Oh,
hope that
thanks.
everybody here, I hope you guys have gotten something from this. If you have comments below, let us know what you think. Like, subscribe so that you can get notified when we go live. And any final words there, Ayesha?
No, just no.
And I do think,
Grateful.
so we
Grateful.
have to look at, because next month, we are getting into next month.
Yes.
And oh, of course, I don't have anything easily at my fingertips.
We are going to be talking about love.
Oh, we're talking about love, baby. We're talking about you and me. Yeah. So we're going to talk about love. First, we'll talk about emotions. Then we'll talk about our thoughts. And then we put it together. So any coaching questions, any issues you want us to chat about, let us know.
That's
Thank
right.
you very much, my darling.
Thank you, lovely. Thank you. So remember that we take the first week of the month off, and then we will be back with you on the second Sunday of February, which I believe is February the what? What is it? It is. I know. Actually, we have so we're going to be off on the 30th, and then we're going to be back on the either the 5th or the 12th. We'll post and let you know.
I think we're going to come back on the 5th because we do have the family day in February. So and we take off the long weekends. We don't want you to be
That's right.
Right?
That's right. Yep.
So we'll have that posted in Just Talking. So we will talk soon.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Please comment, and we'll see you back on the 5th. All right. Thank you. Love you, babe.
Love you. Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye.